Welcome to Inclusion Influencers, brought to you by the National Alliance for Accessible Golf. I'm Dave Barton, Executive Director of the Alliance, and we're lucky to have two guests joining us today from the United States Disabled Golf Association, also known as the USDGA. I'd like to welcome Jason Faircloth, the founder of the USDGA, and John Bell, Director of the USDGA. Gentlemen, how goes it this morning?
Well, Dave, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Great to see both of you. I'm going to start with a little bit of background. Jason, you're from North Carolina, just up the street from me here in Charleston, South Carolina, and you went to school at Sampson Community College, where I believe you played on their golf team and Player of the Year in 1999. So that's a story I'm going to have to get from you someday over a cold beverage. You worked at several golf courses in the North Carolina area, and you got some really cool volunteer experience at men's and women's U.S. Opens from 2001 to 2005. 2001, 2005, and 2007. And then in 2011, you were the first and only American to play in the Disabled British Open, where there were only 3 persons with cerebral palsy to play in the event. And I also hear that you went back in 2012 and finished second in your flight. So congratulations on that. And John, if I may, you're known as One Leg Bell. And
correct.
Along with Jason, a key figure in the world of adaptive golf, playing golf as a child, went on to work in the construction industry. And in 2011, you had some injuries in an accident that resulted in the amputation of your left leg. And then you began dedicating yourself to adaptive golf in 2018, now focused on running adaptive golf events with the USDGA and others around the world, helping them rediscover their abilities, emphasizing that golf is a game for everyone, regardless of physical abilities. And so I'm looking forward to speaking with you today. And also, I know we'll get into a little bit later. Beyond working with USDGA, you're working with the Carnes Cup, a great match play event for golfers with disabilities. So we'll look forward to talking about that a little bit as well. But Jason, I'm going to lead with you because, quite honestly, and I don't think John will take this the wrong way, you are the USDGA. You founded it and created it. And so you indicated, I looked at your website, a little research that, the inspiration to start the USDGA occurred at one of those earlier Disabled British Opens. Can you share a little bit about that and kind of what led to your first USDGA championship in 2018 that I believe was held at Eagle Creek Golf Club in Orlando, Florida?
Yeah, that tournament that in 2011 changed my life. It was a tournament that looked like a major in the golf, and I've never played in anything like this. I don't really consider myself as disabled, so that was a new experience for me. But this tournament was spot on, and so I just came back from it thinking, hey, we don't have nothing like this in the U.S. And so that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, that's great. And you said something really resonates with me because I've heard this before at some of the other national events around the country. The way your tournament is run, and the way the Disabled British event was run, it's all about inclusion, right? And treating everyone the same way and giving everyone the opportunity to experience something that, we love golf. We just want to play golf. Golfers with disabilities want to play golf. And when you can show up to an event and just like, hey, I'm here playing golf, that's what it's all about. It's not about my abilities. It's about golf. It's about meeting other folks and having a good, and I think that's really in the end what we're all working towards in this. I mean, does that sound pretty close to where we're at on this?
The one word that I've always said is showcase the golfer who happen to have a disability. That's been our concept from the very beginning.
Yep, that's fantastic. And so, John, you and Jason met, as we mentioned earlier, in 2018. Right? Was that
Yep.
Was that at the inaugural 2000 event or somewhere else?
Yeah, 2018, Dave, was my first actual adaptive event, and I was told by a friend, another amputee friend, and I decided to play in Jason's event, and I zoomed over towards Orlando because I live here in Florida. So I stayed over there, and I ended up placing second place in my category, and I kind of exploded in adaptive golf and found a whole new, let's say, adaptive family. Because there was a lot of us from around the country that came to Jason's event that didn't play other events, around the country because they weren't really I don't I mean I really don't know how many events were back in, 2018, but I didn't know of any other events. So that's where I guess the first time that I actually met Jason, and like we still have the photo, and it's so funny to reflect, that's been X amount of years ago, and here we are today talking to you.
Yeah, I can't speak to it specifically on the history because it is a reasonably long history with adaptive golf. I mean, it's ramped up a little bit. Certainly, the National Amputee Golf Association was formed right after World War II. But I suspect that a lot of events leading up to the last few years, not to say they didn't exist, were more focused on competitions within a certain category, whether it's amputees or intellectual. And now we've kind of tried to merge some of those, I think, which is great. It's still great to have those individual events because everybody likes their bragging rights, right? But I think the merge of these events has been pretty good. And so I guess I have one question for you. You met in 2018, and then Jason John started, I guess, working for you technically, or working with you in 2021. I'm a little curious why it took 3 years for you to get him on board. I mean, was he beating you on the golf course? Did you just not want to hang out with him? I mean, what was going on here?
Well, like
Yeah.
I help I sponsored maybe one or two of Jason's event. I think I might have been like a birdie sponsor, like an eagle sponsor. I was just kind of like backdoor helping him out. But I was still a player, and actually Jason was a player as well. And Jason is tough trusting people, letting him in his little circle, to where it took, X amount of years for, I guess, to build that trust, to let, me in his world. And I don't want to say his secrets, but to travel around with him and do talking for him and stuff like that. So it was up until I would say 2021, until I kind of like maybe got more of official role in helping him out and traveling around. Like probably like when me and Jason went to Oklahoma City to pick a golf course back in 2021, was probably like one of the first times that me and him traveled together. And then, 2021, that's when, he brought me to the table of a PGA meeting, and that's what started that relationship. So, I mean, we've just, I want to say, exploded and blossomed from there, and evolved, and adapted as we grow together.
Yeah, I think it's great. Jason, I believe the first opportunity I really had to sit down and ever kind of talk with you a little bit was at the first U.S. Adaptive Open in Pinehurst. And I'm certainly looking forward to coming down to y'all's event this year. But I do remember that first. I think we were out in that balcony out there in Pinehurst. It was a little bit under construction, so we were in a temporary area. But I'm pretty sure that you made me sit at another table and wait my turn to speak to you. Because you were a pretty popular guy, but not true at all. It was you were very good to speak with, and I appreciated that because honestly, your reputation and what you do had preceded you. So I appreciated that, and we've got some questions I'm going to get your way here in just a second. So, your website, and I'm just going to quote it. Indicates the USDGA is dedicated to promoting the sport for individuals with disabilities and providing competitive opportunities on both national and international levels, and to make golf accessible for all, ensuring those with disabilities can experience the sport's physical and mental benefits. So, a few milestones that are associated with y'all's effort to date. Uh, first championship for disabled golf in the U.S. that qualified for world ranking points for golfers with disabilities. And in 2021, Ping Golf came on board. Okay, great sponsor, and they're doing some amazing things in the adaptive golf world, as we all know, with Brian Wark and PGA Tour Superstores. And then in 2023, PGA of America became the presenting sponsor, which is really cool to see a leading golf association like that involved in an event such as yours, which says a lot about the event that you're running and the field and what it does for the game of golf. So, Jason, your field is set for your seventh annual championship. Obviously, COVID took one of those away, like it did a lot of golf in the 2020 timeframe. So, Jason, what are you most looking forward to related to the 2025 event that's going to be hosted at PGA Golf Club in Port St. Lucie, Florida, from May 4th to 7th? I know you've done 7 of these now. This is the 7th one, so it's kind of old hat, right? But there's always something new to look forward to, I think, in these things. So what's going on this year? What are you really looking forward to about this event?
So a guy is going to come over from London, England, to play in our event, and we met in 2011 at the December British Open, and so that's kind of how it all started. And so he is coming over to play in the event that I created.
That is
And so,
fantastic. So in
and so
essence,
that's
full circle, right? So full circle.
yes,
So your inspiration to start this event and do this United States. A guy you met in 2011 is now coming back to see if you listen to what he said, or just to kind of come back and go.
mm, no,
Yeah.
this was a boy that was 12 years old
Oh my
at the
goodness,
time. So it's gonna be good.
It's
that's
it's
that's
it's really it's really cool to, as you say, Dave, a full circle. And I didn't know that Jason met him when he was 12, so that makes it even better of a story. So Jason goes over there, however old he is back then, and meets this child, and then all of a sudden, we find him and say, hey, we're having an event. We'd love for you to come, and he's coming. X amount of years later. So it's really cool, like full circle story.
that is really cool. We'll talk a little bit later about junior golfers and a real opportunity there with the growth of the game here. I mean, I think it's a huge opportunity that was not necessarily available due to whether it was lack of technology, lack of exposure, lack of effective prosthetics, whatever it may be that was keeping more kids from learning that grew up with disabilities. I think it's going to be an amazing time for the sport as we all continue to press forward. Now you've got a pretty good reputation for bringing out the best in people at your event, and you're defending champions Chad Pfeiffer, who's got a phenomenal player. Obviously, Rhian Jackson for the ladies, and Ken Green, a former tour player who won the senior division last year. Are you expecting them to be back this year to defend their titles?
Yes, they are coming
Yes.
back.
Excellent, excellent. I'm sure there's a lot of pride in that for sure to come back, no matter what the tournament is, to see if someone can knock you off of that block that you're sitting on, which I think is a great thing. And either one of you can, answer, this question if you want to, or both. But as you approach this year's event, running golf tournaments is challenging. I mean, I've certainly done it as a golf professional, and you've got golfers from all over the world coming to your event, and some of them have unique, logistics requirements, and some of these things, depending what their disability may be, unique playing requirements. But beyond that, what challenges have you had to face to get this event to where it's at now with the level of success it's happening? Because it couldn't have all been easy.
I I'll start with this one. I think, just in my experience on what I've been around, is the biggest thing is cost, for all of us. I mean, there's only a, let's say, small percentage of, let's say, adaptive players that have the resources to just zoom around the country, if not the world. They have particular sponsors, or maybe they have, extra money laying around in the piggy bank or whatnot. But the vast majority of adaptive players, are, let's say, scraping by, or they don't have, gobs of money, as I say, to where it, like, get on airplanes, it costs money. Having, buying Snickers costs money. And like, some of these players, like, our event might be the only event that they play in. So for us to try to keep our event, or just a location, as cost effective, it's becoming very difficult in the current economy that we keep going in, because everything costs more money. And it's just that's, I feel, is a really big struggle, is a lot of cost is involved. And like something that has drastically helped us out is our sponsors to offset some of those costs so we can instantly offset the players' costs and give them the items that they require when they show up to the event.
Excellent. Jason, anything to add to that?
Um, I think that some people think that this is easy, because they don't know the behind the scenes stuff that goes on. As I said, I've been in the golf business since I was 12 years old, and that helps. That helps in the behind the scenes because people think that we want when the tournament starts, and when the tournament starts, our work is over. I mean, it's just the way it is. But yeah, people think that it's easy, but it's not. But it's easy for us because we just know what to do. But the majority of the players have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave, there's a lot of times that me and Jason spend probably exactly 4 hours on the phone because that's about when my earbuds die, and then that's when it's time to, hey, Jason, we're done talking. Let me charge my earbuds up so then we can talk another 4 hours. So like throughout the year, like Jason and I have constant communication on, I mean, complete randomness because you never know what might come up, like shirts or somebody drops out of the field or I mean, it's just a constant everyday thing. And then when there's only me and Jason doing it and not like a team of people like other organizations have, you're the ones that have to do it. So it just takes up a lot of time is what it does. And like Jason said, everybody thinks it's easy to where it's golf and food and it's not. There's a lot of logistical behind the scenes thing that has to happen and the big puzzle needs to fit because if there's one piece out of the puzzle, it's not finished.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and I think it's almost better said to say that it's not about the work that begins to get ready for it. It's that the day after it's over, the work begins again. To
Yes.
next year's event. But I tell you, and I would suspect that you probably feel this way, and I know I felt this way on a smaller scale. With I wasn't running international tournaments or bringing in people like this, but we had our fair share of tournaments, but there's really not. I mean, in the golf business, it's customer service, and there can be days where it's kind of a grind. But when you're running an event and having a tournament, and whether you've got 144 people out there or 60 or 70, whatever it is, there are a few things I think as satisfying as the looks on people's faces and the satisfaction on people's faces when they've had a chance to play in the golf tournament. And certainly competition is important, right? It's an important part of golf for some people. But I think for this event and even other golf events, it's really I get more joy sometimes when I'm playing in a tournament. I always want to play well, but honestly, it's to me it's about the social aspects of it, of being with my friends, connecting with people I might not have seen in a while. I want to beat them, sure I do, but the 19th hole can be a great place at these events, quite honestly, and that's just what golf is great for. So regarding your field, right? Tell me a little bit about how your field is established. Is it kind of like Arnie's event is a little bit of an invitational? Obviously, they have to have a world ranking for golfers with disabilities ranking to be eligible, I believe. So, how does your field kind of form up every year? I guess would be my question.
Um, well, it used to be first come first serve, but it was since the PGA of America came involved. I knew that we were gonna have more people to play than we had spots, and so we had to do something. Um, we just had to do something to cut the field to 90, and so and so the only thing that we require is you have to um play in events throughout the country. That's the only thing that we require. And then whoever um you know whoever wager, we just pick the field according to the classifications and all that.
Okay. Okay. John, anything to add to that?
No, I think Jason covered it. I'm gonna say, like, to some extent our selection stuff is not public.
Yep, understood. Yeah, but I think the criteria with the world ranking for golfers with disabilities establishes an entry point, and from there, again, there are opportunities all over the country to play in all sorts of different events here and there. And I think a lot of organizers each run their own events the way they best see to have the field and the type of event they want to work. And I think that's great.
Correct.
Yeah. So you mentioned, player classifications, some say categories, and I got here about 3 years ago, and I had a little bit of learning to do, and I tell you, it got confusing really quick, because there are a lot of different categories. I mean, certainly there's numerous types of disabilities out there in the world. Whether it's intellectual, neurological, mobility impairments, whatever that may be. And so, I know, again, for comparison's sake, I think y'all use a few more classifications than I think USGA uses 8 impairment categories. Use a few more. Tell me a little bit about that and how you kind of settled on the impairment categories you use, and kind of why you feel like that's a really good approach to how you conduct your event.
We kind of use the guidelines, on classifications through USAGA to some extent. I mean, I feel they have, probably the best system how we play the game of golf. I'm going to say across the world, nothing is perfect, because you could take, 3 amputees and all of us have different, extra impairments, so there's not going to be the exact same disability person across the board. So it makes it very, very difficult to put everybody in the same classification to all compete on a fairness level. So nothing's, like I said, nothing's perfect, but here in the United States, how we play the game, USAGA has a pretty good standard of classifications that we, like I said, use to some extent to base our players in those particular classifications.
That makes sense to me. Well, thank you for that. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to getting down to Florida to watch some great golf. And so, if I may here just for a moment, I'm going to pivot a little bit over to you, John, about the Cairns Cup. Country, I might be saying that the wrong way. Cairns. I mean,
Cairns Cup.
Yeah, exactly. That's the country person coming at me. But tell us a little bit about your event and how you got involved in that, and love to hear.
So back in 2018, we played Phoenix Cup in Rotundra. I was vice captain on the Phoenix Cup team, and then Billy flew over, and Jason was actually on this team as well for Team USA. Billy had flown over, if my memory serves me correctly, and he had a medical episode, and he ended up passing away. And to our knowledge, I don't know if this is 100% correct or not, the Phoenix Cup was no longer going to exist. They've been around for X a number of years. So Ian Halliwell and Kevin Booth, they were, consoling each other. They were, from how they tell it, they were having I believe they were drinking some wine in a hot tub, 2 old, European guys. And, they had a grand idea, how do we, honor Billy Cairns, like he passed away. He's our great brother. And they said, well, if the Phoenix Cup is going away, let's start the Cairns Cup. So in 2019, they contacted a number of us in the United States, and we started planning for the Cairns Cup at Celtic Manor in 2020. We flew over there and, actually it was January of 2020. And, right the month after we get back, that's when the world shut down. So we were planning to play at Celtic Manor in, 2020. We had to postpone to 2021, postpone to 2022. And then Jason was on the team. Again, me and Jason were also on the team. We ended up switching to London for 2022, which I think was a great decision. We played a really nice course, the Shire. Um, I ended up securing the win for Team USA by sinking the putt, which was pretty exciting. I had no idea I was totally in golf mode at that particular time. Fly back home, and then I ended up taking on a bigger role in the organization as vice president. And in 2024, we had the Cairns Cup in Shelby Township, Michigan, which is just north of Detroit. Had a phenomenal event, a great course. The staff of the course was phenomenal. I can't say anything better about that, Cherry Creek. And now 2026, we're planning to go to Spain. So it's a, as you say, it's a great match play event that's all inclusive with mixed disabilities. And I want to say it's a really cool event. It's something really cool to be a part of, on top of, being a part of, USDGA. So I want to say I'm kind of a part of two of the biggest, coolest adaptive events in the world, I feel. And I'm pretty biased when I say that, but I can say that because I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty cool. And when you're dropping names like Celtic Manor and some of these clubs, obviously that's pretty cool to get on some of these facilities around the world. And well, together, y'all bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to the table related to adaptive golf. And so I want to shift over and get some thoughts on the state of adaptive golf per se, or your perspectives on that in the United States. As we touched on a little bit earlier, there's quite a few adaptive golf tournaments around the country every year, and even that term adaptive golf, as Dennis Walters mentioned to me a month or so ago, it's a relatively new term, I think. Which is good. I mean, it certainly identifies a great cadre of individuals, but it hasn't been around forever. But this is a term we're using. So a lot of the state golf associations are getting on board now and kind of, catching up, Philadelphia, Arizona, Texas, Florida, they've got some Georgia, they've got some great programs out there that are having state championships and more and more. And then obviously there's your event, there's the US Adaptive Open, and they have 6 qualifiers last year, I believe, for that event. So a lot of tournaments around the country. Not to mention the individual ones that we talked about for certain organizations, whether it's the Mid-Atlantic Blind Golf Association or the Nampatee Golf Association or the Single Arm Golf Association, those sorts of things. So that's a lot. And so there certainly seems right now to be no shortages of opportunities to compete. So my question is really, kind of what's the inside scoop, from the players related to these opportunities, because it's a big number. But to your point earlier, I think players are maybe starting to be forced to pick and choose a little bit more now because of schedule and cost. And that may be a good thing, but I think it may hurt some tournaments that have historically had better fields. So it's always a give and take with these sort of things. I'm curious about your perspective on that positive growth with opportunities, but what that means for some events that may feel a little bit of a sting for some of their events they've had for a long time.
Yeah, Dave, I think you nailed it. I guess my personal opinion, this is where we've wanted adaptive golf. Let's say this was our vision back in 2018 to have random events in every state, every location, to where, let's say, me and Jason could just get in our car and drive to an event down the street. So, but in turn saying that, I feel currently we are heavily saturated with events. So certain events are, let's say, lacking full fields because there's so many events to where X amount of players can go play an event in their backyard as opposed to fly across the country. So I feel that it's a good problem to have, because that just allows more people the opportunity to have the awareness that there's an event maybe in their backyard. So I feel that maybe that we're gonna, since there's such a saturation of events right now, it might take a couple years to bring the player field up, to bring the community into it, because let's say when there was 5 events, all the events were locked and loaded and completely full to where you couldn't get in, to where now you can pretty much pick and choose wherever you want to go. And now we have events stacking on top of other events to where, like, I can't go out to Torrey Pines and, possibly compete for my title again because they, that event stacks on top of the USDGA event. So yes, players are having to pick and choose where they go. So it does limit where players go, but it also changes who wins at that event because it completely game changes the whole competitive field to some extent. So I think
Yeah,
it's good. I think it's good and bad for right
yeah.
now.
And Jason, I'm going to get you to answer the same question, but I think on that point, I mean, the reality is too, what you've just described there is true for the game of golf in general for non-adaptive events. They're all over the place. So golfers have historically had to pick and choose. Do you want to be in Texas? Do you want to be in Florida? Where do you want to be? What tournament do you want to play in? So I think in the end, you're right. It'll kind of right size. Jason, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
from a from a tournament director standpoint, it's it's kind of I think it's kind of bad because you spend all this time trying to set up, and only 20 to 30 people will come. And from a player standpoint, if you get 30 to 35 people to come, is that really a tournament with
Right.
that amount? But but with that said, most people gonna get the opportunity to play in events. There's there's some that it's gonna be full, but most tournaments it's not gonna be full. So if you want to play in the tournaments, you can. It's not gonna be. It's just not gonna be um exclusive.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm going to go off script here per se a little bit and kind of ask a question because the primary the major events such as yours, these are gross competitions, correct? They're gross events, right? But I wonder, and I don't know this because I'm not on the traveling circuit for these events, but for these other events that might be you know not as large event, not really considered a national event, whether it's local or regional, you know, uh, there's a lot of players out there who, are not necessarily interested in competing, right? They want to learn to play golf. Some golfers may never choose to compete or may not want to. That's fine. That's the beauty of the game. If you want to go do it, you can. But I wonder if do you think that these other events out there, are they running net competitions as part of their events? Is that a way to maybe bring newer golfers in who might have been concerned about competitions if they know there's that net game in there as well, like some club events that might bring some less experienced golfers to the events, but it could keep the field size up because, hey, net is net, right? If you've got a good handicap index for the USGA, you can compete with anybody. The three of us can go play. We can use an index. I'm sure Jason's going to take my money. I don't care, whatever, because I can't cover my handicap right now. But the thing is, do you think some of those would benefit from using net competitions if they're not doing easy on the smaller scale? I guess because it brings
So
new golfers there.
Our first two events was net.
Okay.
Uh, we did have a net component to it. So yes, I feel like net is good if they have the correct handicaps.
Yeah,
Because
and the
the
courses have to be set up correctly as well. Because if you're going to go in net competition, the course has to be set up correctly. The tee box distances have to be set up correctly so that a seeded golfer, for example, playing from 5,000 yards, going up against a golfer that plays from 6,300 yards, who can shoot scratch, right? I think that levels the playing field. There's a lot that goes into it beyond just the USGA index, correct, John?
yeah, and I mean this might be controversial to say, but let's say if we did, let's say somebody implemented, a straight up net somewhere random course to where if there was actual legit indexes to where let's say all of us could play from the back tees or the front tees and all your net calculations are going to mathematically figure everything out to where we wouldn't even have to play with categories. We could just all go out there and just play whatever random tee box is, or the same tee box. We could play the forward tee box.
Yep.
And as you say, compete on the same level if we had legitimate handicap indexes,
Yeah.
keyword, and that now I do see that some events maybe this year are going to net, but like I say, is those indexes actually correct to where our people, and I learned this because I talked to a handicap guy that knows his stuff, to where you really should enter in your handicaps hole by hole, as opposed to, like, I guess the lazy way, like I used to do it, like you get in your vehicle and you get on your app and you go, let's say 40-40 and call it a day and, drive out of the parking lot. Technically, to have a legit handicap, you should actually keep track of hole by hole to have it more accurate. And if we could all do that, because this is a gentleman's per se game, then I would agree with the whole net situation.
Yeah, I think obviously in the context of us, I would say other than the current national events, certainly they need to be gross, and they're done great the way that they do them. I think as participation grows, it's probably a pretty good little entry path, because I do think there is a connection between the exposure that these competitions are getting now, for sure, to bringing people out to watch and see if they can do it, notwithstanding wanting to go learn and play. And I would assume you guys kind of feel the same way. These competitions are certainly great for the competitors, but they certainly do their fair share to, simply show folks what's possible. I mean, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, what's really cool, Dave, is like when you get corporations to partner with you, like Jason was able to get Ping to part with him early on, you know, and then PG of America, or Nike, or all the other Titleist, or any other big names out there, to where you're, as you said earlier in our conversation, you're kind of a trusted event and trusted individuals, because big companies don't want to, you know, be partnered with you, if you're not a trusted individual, or, they show up to your events and they, I want to say, stalk it to make sure you're kind of legit. And, I think that resonates with players to where, hey, like, we really want to go to, John and Jason's event, like it's legit. It's really cool, to go to that caliber event. And then, like, I want to say, like, Jason was kind of like, I don't want to say, I don't know if pioneer is a good word, but like, all these years, like, you have one company get on board with, Jason's event, and then other companies get on board, and then another company gets on board. And now what we're seeing is, since, me and Jason's been able to, grab corporate sponsorships in the fashion that we have, other corporations have been sponsoring other tournaments. So I like to see that other corporations are also supporting the adaptive golfing world.
Yep, excellent. Well, I'm going to kick back over to you, Jason. This is and John, but I'm going to lead with you on this one, Jason. Look, I wouldn't call these rapid fire questions, but let me tee it up for you a little bit, and then we can kind of talk about it a little bit, and then we'll be approaching the bewitching hour here, as they say. So, in general, all right, I think it's safe to say all of us on this call, understand the health and wellness benefits the game brings to people, whether that's physical, whether it's emotional, whatever that may be. There are intangible benefits to the game of golf that go way beyond whatever score you shot that day. Although, quite honestly, there have been days where I had a bad score, where I got home, where I was not a happy person. But that goes away, and that's the beauty of the game, because you've always got tomorrow to fix that and to go a different direction. But there are some things that our organization thinks there are opportunities for improvement in. Not to suggest that there is not good momentum, but there are some things that we think is what we advocate for. And I'm going to lay a few of those out for you, just as kind of examples. And I'm curious about your thoughts of those, or maybe we've missed something, or maybe there's something we haven't thought about. But imagery is important, and marketing efforts. And I think right now the imagery and marketing efforts, they ramp up around these events, but they don't continue as they should throughout the year, especially, I think, with, not to name any, larger national golf associations who reach such a broad audience with their junior programs. how effective that would be to show more imagery of a child that might have a disability involved, to show parents and that child what's possible. There's still a lot of adults out there who do not understand or do not know that the golf course in their backyard has an instructional program for that has instructors that are trained working with folks with disabilities that sometimes require a little bit of an extra training. It's just experience. It's not complicated. I mean, you just have to learn to work with someone with whatever their abilities are. But there are some things that are nice to know, whether it's how to communicate and work with certain individuals, disability etiquette, those sorts of things. So I think we're really banging on golf courses, especially with our database, to just tell us what you got going on. Do you have a program? Do you have an adaptive cart? Do you share one? Let us know, because our phone rings. I know your phone rings. I had 3 calls last week from folks asking, is there an adaptive golf cart in Wilmington? Is there an adaptive golf cart in Florida? Where? And so we can point them in the right direction, but it's just a little more challenging to find than I think. And then I think so that's kind of where we're at. And I was curious, where you think the golf industry is right now on, improvement opportunities. Not to suggest that it's bad, but where can we do better, Jason? What would you lead with?
Well, to be honest with you, I've been around people with disabilities all my life, and a lot of these people, they think that they are supposed to have something for them, and and if they don't have that something for them, then they don't do it. Well, golf is different. Golf and sports, you can go out and you can play on your own. You don't have to have anybody teaching them. I mean, you don't have to have a, you don't have to be in a group to play. You can go out there and play and just go. And so I think that people with disabilities is kind of, I mean, they I mean, I hate to say this, but they get baby, baby, kind of like they want to get baby, and they don't have to do that. Golf is the individual sport, and and I think that you can go out there and play golf, um, to a certain extent,
Yep.
by yourself.
No, it makes
Um,
sense. So if I kind of, uh, paraphrase that, kind of what you're saying is, if an individual has a disability, um, pick up a club and go. Get out there and just, pick up a club and go. Even though, yes, the golf courses and everybody should be marketing to let you know it's there, but get over to the golf course, show up at the golf club and go, look, I want to play some golf. Let's go. I am here to play golf.
Yeah,
yeah,
like
and
like show interest, and ask questions. Or maybe let's say I might show up to a particular golf course and maybe they don't know all of us exist. And then once they know all of us exist, like, hey, how can we get involved? And I link them up with you, Dave, or they see all these programs, to where they can bring, a clinic to their facility if they so be it. Or, there's all these other random driving ranges like Top Golf or Drive Shack, or even just starting out of some random, putt course. It's the activity is the biggest benefit from golf.
Yep.
Is the physical activity and the mental activity is the biggest benefit from golf.
Yep. Jason?
yes, and if you're in the wheelchair, now that's a whole other different topic. Um, but again, um, 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 even if you're in a wheelchair, I mean, every sport that you play is gonna have any issue. So I mean, that's not really um um if you're in a wheelchair, if you really want to play golf, you can. Um, it's just gonna be some more challenges that you might have, but everybody got challenges.
Yeah, I well said there, Jason. And I think too, I believe I'm safe in saying this, right? As we talked earlier about categories and classifications, there are a range of different types of disabilities out there, individuals with disabilities who want to play golf. Okay. The seated golfer community, by far visually is the one that kind of garners the most visual attention because you see it coming and there's a very defined kind of unique requirement with that vehicle for them to play the game, right? If they've got a lower body impairment, you know, uh, individuals with a lower body impairment who may be ambulatory. John, where there's one prosthetic leg or two, there are some that walk, but still doing that for 18 holes or whatever, they might need a little extra access closer to the greens or tee boxes. So there's not one size fits all, and there's so many individuals out there with disabilities that are not visually apparent. And I think getting golf courses to understand you're not just seeking to invite and attract golfers to your golf course and not doing that because you don't have an adaptive vehicle. You need to get beyond that. That's one piece of the bigger picture, quite honestly. And I think sometimes it gets lost in that because those cars can be expensive and it can be a financial challenge for some properties to do that. But we hope they're working on it. But I think there's so many golfers out there that do not have that requirement, might need a little bit of extra access, but they're not asking for you to take them to the moon and come back, right? Let's be realistic about it, right?
Yeah, I think something that I personally see out there, when I come up on, let's say, a new person that's an adaptive golfer, that's at a course, let's say for instance, we might be playing a practice round at some random event, and maybe they forgot to turn the cart, if the carts have the ability to have GPS, they forget to turn the carts in handicap mode. And I said, hey, make sure when you go to a golf course, tell the pro shop to put your cart in, handicap mode to where you can have more accessibility throughout the course, and just tell them, hey, by the way, I need to have a little bit more access, to make, and actually it just, in real honesty, it speeds up play is what happens, because then you don't have random John Bell having to walk all the way across the fairway, to get his club, even though I walk pretty good, but like it still takes up time. And even like I'll get hassled a lot because I don't normally put my cart in handicap mode to some extent, or I forget about it, to where I'll have a ranger come flying up on me, and then they're like, oh, then they see my leg, and because I never carry a handicap flag, and they see my leg and they're like, oh, have a good day, like they don't know what to say. So it's pretty funny when that kind of happens.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. We're kind of nearing the end of our time together today, and I could keep talking to y'all for hours, but I know that would not necessarily be the highlight of your day. It would probably be the highlight of mine. So, I guess the last question I'll ask each of you, and Jason, I'll lead with you as the USDGA founder, right? If you're looking in your crystal ball, um, what do you see in the future for the USDGA championship in your organization? But it's for adaptive golf in general. What do you like about what you see going on right now?
Um, it's getting bigger. Every year it's just getting bigger. Um, we we obviously want more sponsors. We obviously want more people to get involved. Not necessarily for the money part, just just, just for the name, just for their name to be associated with adaptive golf. And you don't have to be just an author. It can be any tournament because because we serve all the same people, and so but I think it's going to get bigger. I think the tournament's going to get better organized because they see what what is necessary. You know, for for a for a number of years, I play golf. I go to different tournaments around the country. Well, one reason why I do that is because I want to see how they do theirs. I want to see what they do, and so if I like a certain part of the tournament, well, guess what? I will. come back and I will incorporate it out.
Mhm.
And so I think all the tournaments should be like that and just get better and better each year.
Excellent. John, the parting takeaways, parting shots here.
I mean, I just, piggyback off of Jason. I mean, like just in the last, let's say 3 years, we've been doing it at PGA Golf Club with PGA of America. Like in Ping, I mean, we're kind of a well-oiled machine. We just get better and better every year, and we keep making a bigger family. And that's the best part about our event is me and Jason are so personable to the players, and I think the players really appreciate it every time they see us. Coming to our event is like a big player family reunion. They get to see their friends, we get to see our friends, and we get to see their smiles. And not only do we have a phenomenal competition, but we have a phenomenal family reunion. Because most of the time you only get to see, your friends when you're on the internet or you show up at a tournament. So we strive to make our event like a big family social event. And it's like, Dave, you'll see it. It's awesome to see. Like, it's way better seeing it in person than when you see it on social media. And I just think that we're going to get better and better at doing it and just make more smiles. I mean, I want to say, like, me and Jason are kind of already at the top. So, like, what do we like make better other than, like Jason said, like having more corporations not only involved in our event, but everybody's event, because then it just makes everybody's event better and it creates more awareness to where all our saturated events just get bigger for more players, for local persons of disabilities.
Yeah, that's great. And from both of you, your comments there, what a great way to close our conversation today. And for both of you, Jason and John, I'm really appreciative of you taking the time to speak with me today. And I look forward to seeing you down in Florida. I'm actually going to get there on Saturday because the flight was cheaper. So I'm going to hang out in Florida, spend a little time with you on Sunday. I know you are going to be very busy, so I'm going to work to stay out of your way and just really watch some good golf. But I'm really looking forward to it. So until we meet again, hit them straight. And thank you for everything that you are doing to bring golfers of all abilities into the game.
Yep. Thank you, Dave. And thanks for all that you and your organization do for all of us.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.